Columbus came to this world, and he came here and he lands on Hispaniola, and he finds people that, from his point of view, were far inferior to what he had to offer as far as culture and civilization was concerned. So what do? They enslave them. And they basically, when Pizarro and his friends went into Central and South America, what did they do? They basically ripped off the indigenous population 16 ways from Sunday, stole every bit of gold that they could get their hands on, and did it all in the name of religion.
Oh, yeah. Named it in the Catholic Church, I hate to say it. And, that's the part that really offends me. But, going even farther, I'm going back to, man has always had to believe in some type of God. If you didn't have some type of God, you have nothing to live for, basically. And it's always been like the sun god or the god of Olympus or god of fire, whatever. And what I find, if you really think about it, why would the natives and all, like when the Spaniards conquered, all the places they conquered and stole their gold and took their gold, right? Why would these natives or the Indians have gold? Why didn't they have pewter? Why didn't they have brass? Why didn't they have copper? Why didn't they have something else? No, it was gold and silver. They knew it was worth something. And the reason why I say that is because I think we were visited by aliens, number one, that were basically raping our planet for the gold and silver. Because regardless what technology you have, electronics, gold is like one of the best conductors of current, you could have, and then followed by silver. And you think about that. So then I would think the Indians and natives all of a sudden know that because they're being, forced labor at one point, they know it's worth something. So that's why they have their stashes of gold.
I think that Sitchin hit the nail on the head when he said that the people that came down here, the Anunnaki, and they go by many other names, basically manipulated a local species, a hominid. They basically did some genetic engineering. Why did they do that? Because they needed a slave race. And why did they need a slave race? They needed a slave race to mine gold, because allegedly they needed it for their atmosphere. So you're absolutely right. I mean, when you're talking about every corner of the earth, you talk about any indigenous population that talks about these beings that came from the sky, and they taught them about gold and they taught them about silver. I think that there's a lot of credibility to everything that you're saying, Gary.
Yeah, but there's people out there that deny that, and it to me it makes logical sense. And I do think that us as humans have been manipulated numerous times. And I think our God, and I last time I said this, I got so much hate mail, but our God that we think is God is not God that we actually think it is. I think it's a God that was probably, from another planet, another solar system.
Okay, go back. Everything that you're saying, when you think about it, holds water. You look back at, let's just take the ancient Greeks. Okay, a race of beings comes down, and they basically put a base camp. Where do they put it? On the top of Mount Olympus. It's hard to get to. It's difficult for people to really see what's going on up there. And let's just say, hypothetically, they come down in a spacecraft, and they have all of these superior weapons. They've got all this technology that is literally light years away from these, sheep herders and warriors of Greece. And what do? They basically want to impress the local indigenous population as to how bad they are. So, they fire a couple laser weapons, which get interpreted as lightning bolts. And, the guy that is in charge of all these people, they give him a name, and that's Zeus. And you've got all these people that were following him, and you can find that over and over and over again, where people who really didn't understand what was going on, something to them supernatural occurs, and they're going, these people ought to be gods. Look at that lightning bolt they just threw.
Oh, yeah. And they would have probably had the technology, I hate to say it, to flood the earth, too, at one point.
Oh, sure. Atlantis is a perfect example of, I think that once upon a time, there was a canopy that used to surround the earth. It was, we had a totally different climate than we do now, and the earth was a different place. Ida Rose taught me that once upon a time there was a canopy that enveloped the earth. It was it basically was a climate control mechanism. We didn't have the huge variances of climate that we have now. And what happened was, for a number of reasons, that canopy was ruptured. And that great flood event that all of these cultures of the world talk about occurred, and the climate changed. The Sahara, which used to be a garden, turned into a desert practically overnight. You've had other episodes like that where parts of the outer atmosphere have opened up. That's why you find woolly mammoths in places like northern Alaska that still have green grass in their mouths. That was an instantaneous event.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like instant freeze. Or I was reading instant barbecue, depending on the location.
That too, yeah, exactly. So I think that people that send you hate mail, I'm sorry that they don't have the mental furniture to deal with what you're saying, but you make some very valid points. And we've done the same thing. Columbus went in, he basically subjugated the people because they, in the past, had people that had reddish blonde hair and white skins that had come and visited them from the sky, and a lot of those people thought, wow, they're back. Wrong. But what did they base that on? They based that on events that occurred in their distant past, and they went, oh, well, these people must be benevolent, just like some of these idiots think that all people that are coming down here to visit them are friendly and are space brothers. And you and I know that's ridiculous on the face of it. It's simply not true.
I don't know.
Right.
I just hear that so much. And James, I think you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you just prove what their agendas are. Their agendas are for themselves, these aliens, because even if you look back in history, if they made us slaves or whatnot to get gold, it was for their own agenda. They're not here to help us. They're here for their own agenda, just like Columbus of Spain, when they came over here, they were there for their own agenda to self-serve themselves. And that's the scary part. People are being fooled to think, oh, yeah, they're here to help us. You don't want to be lulled into that, because I don't believe that at all.
Well, you know what?
Well, James, you make a really good point. And if you look at Washington, D.C. today and all this, I'm an independent, and I think all of it is absolutely nauseating what's going on. But the long and the short of it is, these people all have varying agendas. There are people that and things which basically have caused a lot of those people to have agendas and allegiances to unseen forces, powers, and principalities in high places, if you will. We could talk about that ad nauseum, but everything that you're saying about those intelligences that people think, well, naively, that they all want to be our friends. Take a look around you and ask yourself, gee, is that really true? I don't think so.
Well, you know what? I look at it this way. What is happening to our Earth really fastly now? We've been in such a denial for the last 20-some years, about Earth changes and about climate changes. Al Gore tried to warn people 20-some years ago, and everybody made fun of him and said that he didn't know what he was talking about, that he was crazy. But everything he has said is happening. And, my late friend Art Bell, along with Whitney, wrote, the global superstorm. I think they saw the future. Maybe they were off by about 20, 30 years. But our world is changing fast. By 2040, you won't even recognize our planet the way it is now. Our ocean will be, they are saying now, up to 50% plastic contaminated. The temperatures are going to rise. Your fish and sea life is going to die off. Water by 2050 is going to be very rare. People are going to be walking for miles to get, or thousands of miles to get water. And water is going to be very expensive. A lot of things are happening. And if there is aliens here that are, quote unquote, watching over us, giving off good orbs, they're not doing anything. They're not helping us. They're not contacting our leaders and saying, you can't run your planet this way. You're killing yourselves. You only got this amount of years left unless you make a drastic change. It's not happening. None of it's happening. They're not stopping the ice melting in Antarctica. Any day we're going to have a major virus that's going to come probably from Antarctica or somewhere else as the permafrost melts. Some type of bacteria that's going to be lethal to humans is going to get circulated, and we have no protection. Our antibiotics right now, we don't. If you get any of these flesh eating bacteria in your system, you're pretty much history.
You're in deep trouble.
You're gonna, most likely you're going to die, or you're not going to have your arms or legs or something's going to be gone, and it's scary. And things are moving so fast, but yet our political system right now is more worried about everything else and not worried about what our grandkids are going to live through, and it's scary.
Would you agree with me, Gary, that what, in my opinion, they're attempting to do is all this crap that's going on, they want to distract the American public away from everything that you're talking about. They don't want you to think about pollution. They don't want you to think about the water shortages. They don't want you to think about the fact that you're not going to be able to have food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They don't want you thinking about that. They basically want people distracted over the Ukraine and who did this and who did that and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because they don't want you thinking about all of these other things that are going on.
Well, I agree. And you know what? We're going to go to news here, break for the radio stations in about 1 minute. But I'm going to say something again I said the other day, and boy, people thought I was crazy, but I'm going to repeat it because it's, each one of us has our own views. I digest, what we're talking about 24/7. I mean, I've been in this business of, talk radio, the paranormal since 1976. And I've seen the writing on the wall, and it's almost here. We're going to go to break. We'll be back in about 4 minutes. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with a great guest, Tom and James. So we'll be back here in a few.
Sometimes get uptight when reading all those faith-based books all claim to get it right. In volumes of religious texts which have their own agenda, there lies a silver thread of truth mixed in with propaganda. Be careful what you say to those with whom you'll be at odds, who've taken on the dogma in the pantheon of gods. Doesn't matter if you're Christian